Welcome, today's story is full of drama. Like and subscribe to stay updated. Let's get started.
The unexpected death of a loved one is one of the most painful experiences, often more intense than when someone has been seriously ill. When death is imminent due to illness, we have time to prepare our hearts and minds for the inevitable. But when my dear husband Jonathan passed away so suddenly, it left me reeling. He slipped on the ice one morning, breaking his leg, and the resulting bone marrow entered his bloodstream, causing a fatal pulmonary embolism. In an instant, I became a widow. At the age of 46, I am Caroline, and Jonathan was 5 years older than me. Our 3 children had all moved away from our northeast city. Melissa, our eldest, lives in Alaska. Rebecca, our younger daughter, is in Florida. And our son Daniel resides in Texas. Each of them has children of their own, which means I can't just visit them to help with my grandchildren. As I look toward the future, I couldn't help but wonder what my life would look like now, with my children far away and no clear sense of what lay ahead. I came from a humble background. My mother was a divorce with 2 children, and my father disappeared without a trace after the divorce. He wanted to avoid paying child support and alimony, and back then it was easier to vanish without a word. This was before significant technological advances, when people could disappear more easily. My mom worked as a waitress in a respectable restaurant, and though money was tight, she raised my brother and me well. We both graduated from high school. My brother David went on to the police academy. After 25 years of service, he now works as a security manager at a racecourse. He lives a happy life with his wife, and they are proud grandparents of 2 daughters. As for me, I started working as a shop assistant in a clothing store, where I met my late husband, Jonathan. He was an apprentice at a chemical firm after graduating from college. He had been to the store several times to buy things, and after a recent breakup, he asked me out on a date. I had dated before, so accepting his offer wasn't a big deal to me. After a brief courtship, we were married when I was just 22 years old. We received $5,000 as a wedding gift from Jonathan's brother, Michael, which helped us start our life together in a modest home. Now I own a beauty salon in one of the malls in my city. This beauty salon is a successful business employing 12 ladies. My late husband was a successful manager at a local chemical company, and we were financially secure. I did not have a college degree, so I undertook cosmetic and hairdresser training, which enabled me to work in a beauty salon. When my youngest daughter was 12 years old, I worked as an employee for 5 years. When the owner wanted to retire, my husband and I decided to purchase the beauty salon from her. We almost had all the money, but a bank loan of $25,000 was required to make up the difference. It only took 5 years to pay off the loan for the beauty salon. Jonathan's brother, Michael, was 14 years older and an extremely successful businessman, a multimillionaire at that time. He owned a construction firm as well as many other investments. He was an architect and he liked his younger brother, but he also assisted his sister. Jonathan had a younger sister, Amanda, but she moved to California with her husband and their 2 daughters. My husband was a late child who was born when his older siblings were ready to start their adult lives. However, the 3 siblings had a close relationship irrespective of the age difference or the far distances they lived apart. Michael was married with 2 sons when I knew him. We visited his large house for family events. Amanda and my family received generous sums of money from Michael every Christmas. We tried to give some type of valuable presents to his family, but we always felt outdone in this competition. Michael was very popular among our kids and Amanda's kids alike. My husband and I were successful, but we were not as wealthy as Michael's family. Michael was a heavy smoker, so it was not surprising that he developed lung cancer. The late diagnosis of his condition made treatment by the doctors pointless, as his body was full of metastases. Palliative care was organized at a hospice, and Jonathan helped him and was present when he died. Michael's wife became a widow, while their 2 sons managed the firm after the death of their father. His older son was a college graduate with business administration qualifications, and the younger son was an architect like his father. They were able to quite effectively divide the tasks between them. Our 3 children also went to college, but they moved far from home. Both of our daughters graduated in business administration, and our son studied petroleum engineering. I remained alone here when Jonathan left me to also be a widow 2 years after Michael's death. The inheritance process was handled according to Jonathan's will. Each child received 1/6 of our cash savings, and I received the remaining half of the savings along with the house and a cabin near a small lake. However, I got a surprise because the will contained a codicil requiring me to visit a lawyer for additional information. This was very strange. I prepared to visit this lawyer in his office after arranging an appointment. I arrived on time and we introduced ourselves. Timothy Harris, the lawyer, was an experienced family attorney who had worked at the firm for more than 40 years. He closed the office door and directed me to sit at his desk. After expressing condolences for my husband's death, the formality began. "Could you show me your identity and the inheritance order?" he asked. I handed everything over. "This is an important formality. I can see you are Jonathan Carter's wife, Mrs. Caroline Carter," he said. "I don't understand anything about this codicil," I replied. He proceeded. "I want to ask for your discretion before I explain everything. You'll decide how to proceed, and I'll execute it. However, your husband told me, and also wrote instructions, that his wife could manage this matter but would have to promise absolute discretion about this secret." I was a little nervous, and my mind was in turmoil when the lawyer continued. "This matter isn't your husband's secret. Your husband was an innocent executor of a last request." I understood and asked, "Was this from Michael, Jonathan's brother?" "Yes," he confirmed. "This was the secret request of Michael Carter. I'm going to tell you everything, but this is a very confidential matter." "I can keep a secret," I replied to reassure him. He began to explain Michael had a construction company among his investments, and he had many employees. One of them was a woman who worked closely with him as his personal assistant. Michael and this woman had a long-term workplace affair. I began to understand the situation and exclaimed, "They were both cheaters." The lawyer responded in a calm voice, "I don't have an official opinion on this matter, only a private one. I'll give you the letter of the deceased Mr. Michael Carter to his brother Jonathan for you to read. You must return it, and once Mr. Carter's will is executed, this letter will be destroyed. No other copies of it exist." He handed me the letter. Michael had signed it at the end. I read it twice, and I was utterly astonished. The content of the letter was as follows: "Dear Jonathan, Rebecca Sullivan was married with a 10-year-old daughter and an 11-year-old son when she started working for me. She was a graduate in business administration and became my personal assistant. We had an affair for almost a year. When I ended the affair, I transferred her to another department in my company. Shortly after, she discovered she was pregnant. She left my employment before giving birth. Years later, I couldn't stop wondering if her child was mine. I hired a private investigator to look into her and her children. The investigator gathered DNA from her daughter, and the test confirmed I was the biological father. I had a 5-year-old daughter, Jennifer Sullivan, in addition to my 2 sons. The private investigation also revealed that Rebecca and her husband, Carl Sullivan, were both unaware of Jennifer's true paternity. Carl had no reason to suspect, as he and I shared similar physical traits: blue eyes and light brown hair. Jennifer's appearance mirrored her mother's, so there was no outward sign to raise suspicion. I asked the investigator to conduct another inquiry 6 years later. Jennifer was then 11 years old and adored her father, Carl. Carl, a successful investor, had transitioned out of real estate at the market's peak and was thriving in alternative energy investments. I felt responsible for the situation. After reading about court cases where settlements awarded 18 years' worth of child support to biological fathers, I organized a secret fund. I set aside $300,000 for Carl in acknowledgement of his role in raising Jennifer, and $300,000 for Jennifer to help her in life. An additional $100,000 is allocated to you for your assistance in managing this delicate matter. All funds are net of taxes and expenses, including legal and investigative fees. Jonathan, I plead with you to keep this matter entirely private. Neither my sons nor your family should learn about it. If possible, Jennifer should remain unaware as well. However, if circumstances require, you may disclose the truth after Jennifer graduates from high school. I trust your judgment in finding the best way to handle this. Sincerely, Michael Carter. I looked up at Timothy Harris, feeling a mix of fear and disbelief. He said, "Please don't be afraid. We're close to resolving this matter. Your husband instructed the same private investigator to update the Sullivan family's situation last year. The reports indicate that they remain completely unaware of Jennifer's paternity, and she still adores her father." He continued, "Mrs. Carter, I think you should take time to review these reports and consider your next steps. I'll provide you with the full documentation, including photos, videos, and written reports on a thumb drive. You have until mid-June to make a decision. I agreed to review the materials and brought them home with me. My hands trembled as I held the digital evidence. A skeleton from my late brother-in-law's past at home. I took my time going through the investigators' reports. They painted a vivid picture of a happy family. Jennifer clearly adored Carl, and the videos and photos showed a warm and affectionate relationship. The latest report confirmed that neither Carl nor Rebecca had any idea about Jennifer's biological father. Jennifer seemed inseparable from her father, especially after her older siblings left home. The weight of the situation consumed me. This wasn't a problem that directly impacted my life, yet it was now my responsibility to manage it. I knew there was no way to approach this without deeply affecting the Sullivan family. Michael's will explicitly requested discretion, and I understood why. A week later, I revisited Timothy Harris to discuss potential options. After much deliberation, we agreed on a possible solution. The $300,000 designated for Jennifer could be presented as a graduation gift from her father, Carl. This would honor Michael's wishes without revealing the truth to Jennifer or her family. However, the next step required me to speak directly with Carl Sullivan. Despite my anxiety, I arranged a confidential meeting at his office. His secretary scheduled the appointment, and I arrived promptly. As I entered Carl's office, he stood to greet me. He was just as handsome as he appeared in the investigative reports, tall, with light brown hair and striking blue eyes. After a brief introduction, he gestured for me to sit down. "Mrs. Carter," he said, "it's a pleasure to meet you, but your request for confidentiality has me intrigued. What brings you here today?" I hesitated for a moment, then began, "Mr. Sullivan, this matter is not related to business or investments. It's a family issue, and it's deeply sensitive. I need some time to explain everything fully." He nodded, his expression serious. "Go ahead. I'm listening." I started slowly, recounting Jonathan's death and Michael's final request. I explained how this task had fallen to me and how it now involved Carl and his daughter Jennifer. As I revealed the existence of the secret fund and Michael's wishes, I noticed a shift in Carl's demeanor. When I finally disclosed that Jennifer's biological father was Michael Carter, Carl sat in stunned silence. His eyes filled with tears as he processed the revelation. Finally, he spoke, his voice breaking. "I love Jennifer more than anything," he said. "She's my daughter. It doesn't matter who the biological father is." Moved by his words, I replied, "Mr. Sullivan, your love for Jennifer is exactly why Michael wanted this handled discreetly. He knew you were an amazing father, and he didn't want this truth to destroy your family. That's why he left this fund, to provide support for Jennifer and to acknowledge your role as her father." Carl nodded slowly. "I appreciate your honesty and the way you've approached this. Jennifer doesn't need to know the truth. She doesn't deserve to have her world turned upside down. The idea of giving her the money as a graduation gift, let's do it that way." We spent the rest of the meeting discussing logistics. The funds would be managed through Timothy Harris's office, ensuring that all payments were made discreetly. I left the office feeling a mix of relief and exhaustion, knowing that the first step toward resolving this was complete. After leaving Carl's office, I reflected on his reaction. His deep love for Jennifer was evident, and I felt reassured about the solution we had discussed. Over the next few days, Timothy Harris and I coordinated the details of the financial transfers. Carl would oversee the graduation gift for Jennifer, while his portion of the funds would be disbursed at a later date, following the terms of Michael's will. A week later, Carl and I met again at the lawyer's office to finalize the arrangements. He arrived promptly, looking composed but carrying an air of quiet determination. Timothy Harris greeted us and reviewed the legal documents once more. "I've prepared everything according to the will's stipulations," Timothy explained. "The $300,000 for Jennifer will be transferred to a bank account in her name as a graduation gift. Carl, you'll handle presenting it to her in a way that aligns with your family's dynamics. Your $300,000 will be available a year later, as specified by Michael Carter's instructions. Caroline, your $100,000 will be disbursed after these two conditions are fulfilled." Carl glanced at me with a nod of understanding. "This approach works. Jennifer will never know the origin of the funds, and I'll ensure she sees it as a gesture from her father." Timothy handed Carl the necessary documents to sign, and the meeting concluded amicably. As we left the office, Carl turned to me and said, Thank you for managing this with such care. I know it wasn't easy for you to get involved in something so personal. I smiled faintly. It wasn't easy, but I could see how much this mattered to Michael, and now I understand why. You're a wonderful father, Carl, and I believe Jennifer is very lucky to have you. Carl's expression softened. I'm lucky to have her too. She's my daughter in every way that matters. As we parted ways, I couldn't help but admire Carl's resilience and strength. Despite the revelation about Jennifer's biological paternity, he remained unwavering in his love for her. It was a reminder that family isn't defined solely by blood, but by the bonds we choose to nurture. Over the following weeks, I stayed in touch with Timothy Harris to monitor the progress of the arrangements. Carl and I also exchanged occasional updates about the situation, gradually developing a sense of camaraderie through our shared responsibility. Though the circumstances that brought us together were complex, I began to feel a growing sense of connection with him, a bond that went beyond our roles in Michael's final wishes. The day of Jennifer's high school graduation arrived, and everything proceeded as planned. Carl presented Jennifer with the $300,000 gift in a way that made it seem like a culmination of his efforts and love for her. She was ecstatic, thanking her father profusely and expressing her appreciation for his generosity. I could tell from the reports that the moment was deeply emotional for Carl, but he managed to keep the true origins of the gift hidden. Over the next few months, Carl and I stayed in regular contact. He often updated me on how Jennifer was doing as she prepared for college. Despite the initial awkwardness of our meetings, our conversations became more open and natural. I could tell Carl appreciated having someone to talk to about this unique situation, and I began to look forward to our interactions. During one of our phone calls, Carl surprised me by saying, "Caroline, I've been thinking about everything we've been through together in the past few months. I want to thank you not just for helping with Michael's request, but for being there for me. You've been a good friend through this process, and it's something I didn't realize I needed." I was taken aback but touched by his words. "Carl, you're welcome. I can see how much you love your family, and I'm just glad I could help in some way." Over time, our connection deepened. Carl's divorce from Rebecca had been finalized by then, as he had chosen to file shortly after Jennifer left for college. The divorce was amicable but emotionally difficult for both parties, particularly for Carl, who had to reconcile his love for Jennifer with the betrayal he felt toward Rebecca. His older children, Daniel and Sarah, were supportive, though they maintained relationships with both parents. As Carl began to rebuild his life post-divorce, we found ourselves spending more time together. Initially, it was under the guise of finalizing the last elements of Michael's will, but our interactions quickly became more personal. Lunches turned into dinners, and eventually, Carl asked if I would like to accompany him to an art exhibit in the city. I agreed, and that night marked the beginning of something new for both of us. Carl was a gentleman, kind and thoughtful, and I found myself drawn to his calm demeanor and steadfast nature. Though we were both cautious, given the circumstances of our meeting, it became clear that our feelings for each other went beyond mere friendship. As our relationship grew, Carl and I took things slowly, respecting the complexities of our pasts. He was still processing the dissolution of his marriage, while I was navigating the emotions that came with losing Jonathan and fulfilling Michael's unusual request. Despite these challenges, our connection felt natural, as if we had both found a kindred spirit in one another. The turning point came during a quiet dinner at my house. Carl had been over several times before, but this evening felt different. After we finished eating, we lingered at the table, talking about our families and sharing memories of our late spouses. Carl reached across the table and gently took my hand. "Caroline," he said softly, "I didn't think I'd ever feel this way again after everything that's happened. But you've brought something back into my life that I thought was gone forever." I felt a lump rise in my throat as I replied, "Carl, I never expected this either. But you've given me a reason to hope again, and I'm so grateful for that." That night, Carl kissed me for the first time, and from that moment, our relationship took on a new depth. We began spending more time together, and before long, Carl introduced me to his children. His son Daniel and daughter Sarah were welcoming, though they were understandably protective of their father. Jennifer, who was away at college, took longer to warm up to the idea, but Carl reassured me that she would come around in time. I, in turn, introduced Carl to my own children. Melissa, Rebecca, and Daniel were supportive, happy to see me moving forward with someone who treated me with kindness and respect. They had always worried about how lonely I had been since Jonathan's death, and Carl's presence in my life put them at ease. One weekend, Carl invited me to join him and his children at their family lake cabin. It was a bittersweet experience for him, as the cabin held many memories of his years with Rebecca and their children. Yet, as we sat by the water and watched the sunset, Carl told me he felt a sense of peace he hadn't experienced in years. "You've helped me move forward, Caroline," he said, "and I don't think I could have done this without you." In the months that followed, our lives became increasingly intertwined. Carl officially moved into my home, and we began discussing plans for the future. Despite the challenges we had faced, we both felt that we had been given a second chance at happiness. As for Jennifer, she continued to thrive in college. Carl remained a constant source of support for her, and over time, she began to see me as an ally rather than a threat to her family dynamic. By the time she returned home for her first college break, she hugged me warmly and said, "I'm glad you make my dad so happy." The resolution of Michael's will came smoothly after Jennifer received her graduation gift. Timothy Harris ensured that the remaining funds were disbursed according to the terms outlined. Carl's $300,000 was transferred a year later, giving him a sense of closure regarding Michael's secret. My $100,000 was also released, but by that point, neither Carl nor I cared much about the money. Our shared journey had already brought us something far more valuable. As Carl and I settled into our life together, we built new routines that brought us closer as a couple and strengthened our bonds with our families. Jennifer, now aware of her mother Rebecca's betrayal and her biological connection to Michael, continued to distance herself from Rebecca. Despite this, Carl and I encouraged her to maintain some relationship with her mother, reminding her that healing was a process that required time and understanding. Rebecca, however, remained estranged from Jennifer. The revelation of Michael's paternity had backfired, leaving Rebecca isolated. While Carl no longer harbored anger toward her, he felt it was best to let Jennifer navigate her own feelings. Rebecca eventually remarried, finding solace with a man who had also endured a difficult past, and Carl wished her well in her new life. Meanwhile, Carl and I embraced our role as grandparents. Jennifer graduated college with a degree in education and later married Kevin, a kind and grounded family doctor she met during her first teaching job. Kevin was drawn to Jennifer's strength and resilience, traits she inherited from Carl's unwavering support throughout her life. Jennifer and Kevin eventually had 2 children, David and Anna, and they often referred to Carl and me as Grandpa and Grandma. My own children, who lived in distant states, visited occasionally, and I traveled to see them as well. But it was Carl's close relationship with Jennifer and her family that brought me a new sense of belonging. Jennifer treated me like a mother, and her children became the focus of my grandparenting joy. For our 5th wedding anniversary, Carl surprised me with a trip to Italy. We visited the beautiful countryside, tasted wines in Tuscany, and explored the romantic canals of Venice. During one of our quiet moments by the water, Carl held my hand and said, "Caroline, I never imagined I'd find someone like you after everything I've been through. Thank you for being my partner, my friend, and my love." Tears welled in my eyes as I replied, "Carl, you've given me a life I didn't think was possible. I'm so grateful for every moment we've shared." As the years passed, our family continued to grow. Jennifer and Kevin thrived in their marriage, and their children brought endless laughter and joy to our lives. My children visited when they could, and Carl's older children gradually accepted me as part of their father's new life. In time, Carl and I became the anchors of a blended and resilient family. The painful secrets of the past had given way to healing, growth, and an enduring love that carried us through the years. As Carl and I grew older, our blended family's bond became even stronger. Jennifer and Kevin's children, David and Anna, became frequent visitors to our home. They brought so much life and laughter, filling our house with the kind of joy that makes time stand still. Carl adored being a grandfather, and I cherished every moment I spent with the little ones. It felt as though I'd been given a second chance to experience the happiness of raising a family. Jennifer and Kevin settled into a beautiful home not far from us. Jennifer's career as a teacher blossomed, and Kevin's work as a family doctor made him a beloved figure in the community. They were a shining example of resilience and love, and watching them build their life together was deeply rewarding. Carl's older children, Daniel and Sarah, slowly grew closer to me. It wasn't an easy process at first, as they were protective of their father and still felt a lingering loyalty to their mother, Rebecca. But over time, They saw how happy Carl was and how much effort I made to integrate into their lives. Eventually, they welcomed me fully into the family. Daniel, who worked as a financial planner, often sought Carl's advice on business matters, while Sarah, a pharmacist, visited with her 2 children whenever she could. Rebecca, however, remained distant. Her relationship with Jennifer never recovered, and while she maintained some contact with Daniel and Sarah, her interactions with Carl and me were virtually non-existent. Despite the estrangement, Carl showed remarkable grace, wishing her no ill will and encouraging his children to maintain their relationships with her. In our later years, Carl and I embarked on new adventures together. We traveled extensively, exploring places we had only dreamed of visiting. From the serene fjords of Norway to the vibrant streets of Tokyo, each trip brought us closer and filled our lives with shared memories. We even returned to Australia, where Carl surprised me with a stay at the same winery we had visited on our honeymoon. Back at home, our daily routines became cherished rituals. Carl and I would often spend mornings walking in the nearby park, followed by quiet afternoons reading or gardening. In the evenings, we enjoyed cooking together, laughing over shared recipes and memories. Life was peaceful, but it was never dull. One particularly memorable summer, Jennifer and Kevin hosted a family barbecue at their home. All of Carl's children and grandchildren attended, along with my children, who flew in from out of state. It was the first time our entire blended family had gathered together, and the sight of everyone laughing, eating, and sharing stories warmed my heart. During the barbecue, Jennifer pulled me aside. "I just want to say thank you," she said, her voice filled with emotion, "for everything you've done for my dad, for our family, and for being here for us. You've been more of a mom to me than I ever expected, and I'm so grateful for you." Her words brought tears to my eyes, and I hugged her tightly. "Jennifer, you've given me so much, too. I feel lucky every day to be part of your life." As the years went on, Carl and I continued to enjoy the simple pleasures of life together. Our family grew, our love deepened, and the painful secrets of the past faded into distant memories. Through it all, we held on to each other, grateful for the second chance at happiness we had been given. In the end, it wasn't the secrets, the money, or the circumstances that defined our lives. It was the love we chose to build together, the family we nurtured, and the joy we found in the everyday moments. As Carl and I moved into our golden years, our lives settled into a steady rhythm of love, family, and cherished routines. Jennifer and Kevin's children, David and Anna, became the brightest lights in our lives. They visited often, sometimes staying for entire weekends. David, now a teenager, loved working on small projects with Carl in the garage, while Anna, with her inquisitive and creative nature, spent hours with me in the kitchen or garden. Carl's older children, Daniel and Sarah, embraced their roles as siblings to Jennifer. The initial barriers between them dissolved over time, as they came to see me not as a replacement for Rebecca, but as an addition to their family. Daniel frequently brought his family to visit us, and Sarah often included me in her children's school events and celebrations. Rebecca, however, remained on the periphery. She remarried and found her own version of happiness, but her relationship with Jennifer remained strained. While Carl and I encouraged Jennifer to consider reconciliation, she held firm to her boundaries. "I love her, but I can't forget what she tried to do to Dad and me," Jennifer once confided. "I've made peace with it, but I don't need her in my life." Despite the complex dynamics, Carl's grace and wisdom set the tone for how we handled Rebecca's place in our extended family. We never spoke ill of her, and we made sure the grandchildren understood the importance of respect and kindness. Over time, Carl's strength and kindness became a cornerstone of our blended family's identity. On our 10th wedding anniversary, Carl surprised me with an intimate celebration at the same lake cabin where we had first bonded as a family. Jennifer and Kevin, along with their children, joined us for the weekend. Daniel and Sarah visited for a day as well. Sitting by the water that evening, surrounded by laughter and love, Carl took my hand and whispered, "I never imagined I'd find this kind of happiness again. You've made my life complete, Caroline." Tears filled my eyes as I replied, "You've given me more than I ever thought possible, Carl. I'm so grateful for every day we've had together." As the years rolled on, the family continued to grow and evolve. Jennifer and Kevin's children thrived, with David pursuing a career in engineering and Anna exploring her passion for the arts. Daniel and Sarah's children found their own paths, and my own children, though scattered across the country, remained close to us in spirit and frequent visitors during the holidays. In our final years, Carl and I slowed down but never lost the spark that had brought us together. We spent quiet days reminiscing about our adventures, marveling at how far we'd come from the days of navigating Michael's secret and the tangled emotions it had brought. We found peace in knowing that we had built something beautiful from the challenges of the past. When Carl passed away at the age of 84, surrounded by his children and grandchildren, I felt the weight of losing him deeply, but also the gratitude of having loved and been loved so completely. His funeral was a celebration of his life, attended by the family he cherished and the friends who had witnessed his journey. Jennifer, now a mother of grown children herself, stood beside me at the service, holding my hand. "He was my dad in every way that mattered," she said, her voice steady but filled with emotion. "And you, Caroline, are my family. I hope you know that." In the years that followed, I carried Carl's memory with me, finding comfort in the family we had nurtured together. Jennifer, Kevin, and their children became my closest companions, ensuring that I was never alone. I continued to see my children and grandchildren whenever I could, their visits bringing joy and laughter into my life. As I reflect on those years, I see a story not of loss but of resilience, love, and the power of family. Carl taught me that life's greatest treasures are the connections we build and the people we hold close. And in that, I found a legacy worth cherishing. Life after Carl's passing was bittersweet but fulfilling. The years we shared together had left me with a deep sense of gratitude and purpose. While I missed him terribly, I found strength in the family we had built and the memories we had created. Jennifer and Kevin, along with their children, were constant sources of comfort. They visited often, filling the house with laughter and keeping Carl's spirit alive in their stories and traditions. Jennifer and I grew even closer in the years after Carl's death. She saw me as more than a stepmother. I had become her confidant, her guide, and her chosen family. Her love for her father continued to inspire her as a parent, and she often reminded me of him in the way she cared for her children. One summer, Jennifer invited me to join her family on a trip to Colorado. It was a chance for all of us to reconnect and create new memories. We hiked the scenic trails, cooked meals together, and spent evenings under the stars, sharing stories about Carl and the love he brought into our lives. The trip was a reminder that life continues to offer moments of joy and connection, even in the face of loss. My own children, scattered across the country, made regular efforts to keep me a part of their lives. Melissa, now living in Oregon, frequently called to share updates about her work and family. Rebecca and her family in Florida planned visits during the holidays, and Daniel, who had settled in Texas, often surprised me with impromptu trips to see me. Their efforts to stay close filled my heart with pride and gratitude. Jennifer's children, David and Anna, grew into remarkable young adults. David followed in his grandfather's footsteps, pursuing a career in engineering, while Anna discovered her passion for the arts and became a successful painter. Both of them credited Carl for instilling in them the values of hard work, integrity, and kindness. Their accomplishments were a testament to the legacy Carl had left behind. As the years went on, I found myself drawn to volunteering in the community. I started spending time at a local women's shelter, helping those who had faced hardships find their own strength and resilience. It was a way to honor Carl's memory and the kindness he had shown throughout his life. On what would have been Carl's 90th birthday, Jennifer and her family organized a gathering to celebrate his life. All of Carl's children and grandchildren attended, along with my own children and their families. It was a beautiful evening filled with laughter, stories, and love. As I looked around the room, my own grandchildren grew into wonderful adults, and though they lived far away, their visits and calls reminded me of the love that spanned our family. When my time eventually came, I left this world with a sense of peace. I had lived a full and meaningful life, surrounded by the love of a family that had grown from the challenges of the past. My legacy, like Carl's, was in the lives I touched and the love I shared. As my health began to decline, I spent more time reflecting on the life Carl and I had built together and the profound impact he had on everyone he loved. Jennifer and Kevin visited more frequently, bringing their children and even their grandchildren, who now called me great-grandma. My house was often filled with laughter and warmth, a testament to the enduring love that Carl and I had cultivated over the years. Jennifer remained a constant in my life. She would often sit with me in the evenings, sharing stories about her work and family. "You know, Dad would have been so proud of David and Anna," she said one evening, her voice soft and filled with emotion. "And he would have adored their kids. Thank you for keeping his spirit alive for all of us." "Jennifer," I replied, reaching for her hand, "it's not just me. You've kept his spirit alive in the way you love your family and the way you live your life. He's in every one of us." As the years passed, I began organizing my belongings, ensuring that each of my children and grandchildren would have something meaningful to remember me by. For Jennifer, I left a small wooden box containing letters Carl had written to me during our life together. In those letters, he had poured his heart out about his love for her and how much he cherished the life they had shared. For my own children, I left tokens of our family's history, photo albums, keepsakes, and personal notes expressing my love and gratitude for the joy they had brought to my life. And for David and Anna, I left stories about Carl and their childhood, ensuring they would always know the incredible man who had been their grandfather. In my final days, I was surrounded by family. Jennifer stayed by my side, holding my hand and reassuring me with her presence. My children and grandchildren visited often, and their laughter filled the house, a comforting reminder of the love that had defined my life. On a quiet spring morning, I passed away peacefully, knowing I had lived a life filled with love, purpose, and family. My funeral was a celebration of that life, attended by those whose lives I had touched and who had touched mine in return. Jennifer gave a heartfelt eulogy, speaking not only about my relationship with Carl, but about the strength and love I had brought to their family. "She wasn't just a stepmother," Jennifer said, her voice steady but emotional. "She was my mom in every way that mattered. She showed me what resilience, kindness, and unconditional love looked like, and I'll carry her lessons with me for the rest of my life." As my family gathered after the service, they shared stories and memories, keeping both Carl's and my legacies alive. Jennifer's grandchildren played in the garden, their laughter echoing through the house, a reminder that life moves forward and that love endures. In the years that followed, Jennifer and her family continued to honor both Carl's and my memory. They often returned to the lake cabin, a place that had been so special to us, to reflect and reconnect. David and Anna carried on the values their grandfather had instilled in them, and Jennifer remained a pillar of strength and love for her family. Though my time had come to an end, the love and bonds we had built together continued to grow, proving that the most important legacies are those we leave in the hearts of the people we cherish. Years after my passing, Jennifer became the matriarch of her family, embodying the lessons of love, resilience, and grace she had learned from Carl and me. She kept our family traditions alive, ensuring that her children and grandchildren grew up with the same values that had been the foundation of our lives. Jennifer and Kevin frequently hosted family gatherings at their home, where the stories of Carl and me were shared like cherished heirlooms. David, now a successful engineer, often brought his own children to these gatherings. He told them about their great-grandfather Carl, a man of integrity and wisdom, and their great-grandmother Caroline, whose kindness and strength had bound the family together. Anna, who had become a renowned artist, honored Carl and me through her work. One of her most celebrated pieces was a painting of the lake cabin, surrounded by soft hues of a setting sun. The painting hung in Jennifer's living room, a constant reminder of the love and memories that had been created there. Rebecca, Carl's first wife, found peace in her later years. Though she and Jennifer never fully reconciled, they maintained a cordial relationship for the sake of the extended family. Rebecca often attended family events alongside her husband, sharing moments of quiet reflection with Carl's older children, Daniel and Sarah. Despite the pain of the past, time softened the edges of their relationship. Jennifer and Kevin, now grandparents themselves, took pride in their growing family. Their grandchildren often asked about the stories of Carl and me, eager to learn about the people who had shaped their family's legacy. Jennifer would smile and say, "They taught us what love and perseverance look like, and that's why we're all here today." As the years passed, Jennifer and Kevin decided to honor Carl and me in a special way. They established a scholarship fund in our names, supporting young students pursuing careers in engineering and education. The fund reflected Carl's dedication to his profession and my commitment to nurturing the next generation. It became a legacy that would continue to make a difference for years to come. On the 20th anniversary of Carl's passing, Jennifer gathered the entire family at the lake cabin. As the sun set over the water, she stood with her children and grandchildren, reflecting on the journey that had brought them to that moment. Grandpa Carl and Grandma Caroline taught us that family isn't just about blood. It's about love, loyalty, and the bonds we choose to create, Jennifer said. Their legacy lives on in all of us, and it's our job to carry that forward. As the family shared stories, laughter, and tears, the spirit of Carl and me felt present in every hug, every smile, and every word. Our love had transcended the years, leaving a lasting imprint on the hearts of those we cherished most. As Jennifer and her family stood by the lake, the warm hues of the setting sun mirrored the love and resilience that had defined their family's story. The laughter of grandchildren and great-grandchildren echoed through the air, blending with the gentle lapping of the water. A symphony of life moving forward while honoring the past. Jennifer looked out over the lake, her heart full. She knew that Carl and I were with her in spirit, watching over the family we had helped nurture. Turning to Kevin, who stood by her side, she whispered, "They would have loved this, seeing everyone together, happy and whole." Kevin nodded, his hand resting on hers. "They gave us the foundation. It's up to us to keep building on it." That evening, as the family gathered around a large bonfire, Jennifer shared one final story. It was about Carl's steadfast love for his children, his unwavering sense of duty, and the way he had embraced life's second chances. She spoke of how I had entered their lives and brought healing and joy during a time of uncertainty, becoming a mother to her in every way that mattered. "When I think of my dad and Caroline," she said, her voice steady but emotional, "I remember two people who chose love above all else. They weren't perfect, and neither was our family, but they showed us how to move forward with grace, how to forgive, and how to cherish what truly matters." As the fire crackled and the family listened intently, Jennifer continued, "Their love wasn't just for each other. It extended to all of us. It's the reason we're here today, together, celebrating not just their lives but the values they taught us." Tears glistened in the eyes of her children and grandchildren as they nodded in agreement. The evening ended with hugs, shared laughter, and a sense of connection that transcended generations. In the years that followed, Jennifer continued to lead her family with the same grace and love she had learned from Carl and me. The scholarship fund grew, helping hundreds of students achieve their dreams, and the family's traditions flourished, ensuring that Carl and I remained a living part of their story. When Jennifer herself passed away decades later, her children and grandchildren gathered once more at the lake cabin. They spoke of the love and wisdom that had been passed down from Carl and me, through Jennifer and Kevin, and now into their own lives. They carried our memories forward, weaving them into the fabric of their own families. In the end, the legacy of Carl and me was not just in the stories told or the traditions kept, but in the love and strength that lived on in the hearts of those we left behind. It was a legacy of resilience, kindness, and the enduring power of family, a testament to the truth that while life may be fleeting, love is eternal. The family stood together on the shore of the lake, the sun setting behind them, as they reflected on the journey that had brought them there. And though Carl and I were no longer physically present, our spirits lingered in the laughter of children, the bonds of love, and the unbreakable ties of family. What was your favorite part? Comment below, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories. See you next time.